Darkcast Network, indie pods with a dark side.
Hey, everyone. We are back with part 2 of our coverage of the Conjuring house. Today, we are diving into behind-the-scenes goodness and the real history of the house that the Perron family lived in during all of the said hauntings, as well as what other owners thought about the home and all of the stories. We're not going to waste any time today and just dive into the fun. So let's get to it. I'm Gina.
And I'm Amber.
And this is the real story of the Conjuring house.
Okay, let's start by talking about fun behind-the-scenes facts. The gorgeous home in the film, like I said, I would 10 out of 10 would live in home with creepy murder basement. That wasn't the actual home where these supposed hauntings took place. The farmhouse was rebuilt by the filmmakers on a soundstage in Wilmington, North Carolina. The real home is much simpler, but just as lovely, located in Harrisville, Rhode Island.
Yeah, it was crazy to me that, like, the actual home is in Rhode Island, but the movie home was in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Oh, the joys of movie making.
So the cast and crew involved in the film experienced some strange events at the studio farmhouse and at their own homes. Several people reported seeing mysterious breezes, ghostly faces, and like strange animal behavior. The wife of one of the writers was home with their senior dog when like random puddles of water started appearing around the house. You know, at first she thought it was the dog having accidents in the house because it was a senior dog that, you know, it tends to happen. But it wasn't. It was just water. Mm-hmm. And it was showing up in places the dog hadn't been. Surprise, surprise. Lorraine Warren suggested it could be poltergeist activity.
Of course she did. Yeah. So some crew members from the movie actually decided to get the full experience and stayed in the real life property. Apparently, it was so spooky that they made a whole ass documentary about it called The Sleepless Unrest. This is interesting to me because I've listened to other people talk about their time at the Conjuring house and they didn't experience much of anything. Mm-hmm. Like multiple podcasts and stuff that have stayed there and really didn't see anything weird and had a much scarier time at like the Lizzie Borden house. Like, and I don't want to dismiss their experience, but it's hard not to think that they were just trying to make a buck, considering they also worked on the making of the film. But this one is a little creepy. So Vera Farmiga, who played Lorraine Warren in the movie, said that after spending time with the real Lorraine, she opened her laptop and found 3-pronged claw mark scratches on her computer screen. On the last day of filming, she found 3 claw marks on her thigh and even shared a picture of the scratches to the other members of the film. Like, I'm sure this was unnerving, but Lorraine told her not to give power to her fear. If you think about it, there could be some way to explain away the scratch marks on her leg, but the scratches on the laptop screen are what's strange to me. Unless somebody was messing with it and just like didn't tell her. But it's strange to me that she would have the same claw marks on the screen and then her leg. Mm-hmm. That's a little creepy.
It's just a little bit. Patrick Wilson, who played Ed Warren, and Vera Farmiga reported waking up every night between 3 and 4 a.m., which is known as the witching hour. The Perrons also allegedly woke up at this time every night while living in the home. 2 of the child actors, Shanley Caswell and Haley McFarlane, who played Andrea and Nancy in the movie, said they also had trouble sleeping or woke up themselves during the witching hour. Caswell even stated she felt as if she was being watched when awakened, and she thought she was being possessed because, according to some people, waking during the witching hour is the first step in spirit possession. Some nights, the actors were so scared they would bunk together, kind of reminiscent of what actually happens in the movie.
Absolutely.
And Joey King, who played Christine in the movie, said she was covered with bruises all over her body during filming, even though she was never involved in any of the stunts. She was diagnosed with a mysterious blood condition that conveniently cleared after she was done filming the movie. And we see this happen with Carolyn's character in the movie.
Kind of a little bit of a weird coincidence.
Yep.
For sure. So the Perrin family was invited to join the actors on set during filming. All of the daughters went, but at the last minute, their mother, Carolyn, who was now elderly, decided not to join them. When Cindy saw the actor Joseph Bashara in his full makeup as Bathsheba, she hid behind Patrick Wilson in terror, and he had to calm her down. Everyone on set the day the Perrin sisters visited were feeling bad vibes. Like, they just got a real weird feeling that day on the set.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrea shared that it was a super calm day. Like, it was a nice day outside, not breezy, just chill. But there was this gust of wind that randomly blew through the set and knocked over cameras and lighting equipment. And to top it off, one of the daughters felt like their mother was in danger, only to find she had fallen and broken her hip while they were away. It's just a lot of bad, weird occurrences that happened that day. And last but not least, the cast and crew felt so much bad juju on set during filming that they asked a priest to bless the set of The Conjuring 2 and 3. Apparently, the priest who did the blessing said that the cosmos doesn't know the difference between fiction and nonfiction.
That's not the first time I've heard that either.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I've never heard that before, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, they just know that, like, y'all are doing some weird shit, and that's going to bring about, like, some
That's just
bad
an invitation.
energy.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely is, yeah. So those are some of the fun and maybe not so fun behind-the-scenes facts and hauntings of The Conjuring. And with all of that being said, let's get into the real history of The Conjuring House.
So let's start by talking about the history of the property. The original 1,000+ acres of land was deeded to the Richardson family in 1680. Over the years, sections of the land were sold off to other families, many of which still own the land today. The Richardson family built the home in 1736, 40 years before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. That is an old-ass house.
Isn't that crazy?
That almost doesn't compute.
It really doesn't. It's hard to remember that there are things in our country that are that old.
That old still, that haven't been demolished and destroyed. It's crazy.
I know.
So the Richardson house was transferred by marriage to the Arnold family because, women had no rights to property back then. Of course not. It was then transferred to the Butterworths and then the Kenyons before being purchased by the Perrins in 1970. That's 8 generations of an extended family living on the same property prior to the Perrins. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of sad the house and the lands were sold to a different family after such a long period of time.
So, public records for the area in Rhode Island are kept in the aptly named Black Book of Burrillville. According to the book, 3 suicides, 2 drownings, 4 freezing deaths, and the rape and murder of an 11-year-old named Prudence Arnold have taken place on the property. There was also a plethora of other deaths that occurred from more natural causes. While it's obviously sad that so many tragic losses took place, the amount of death this property has seen really isn't that surprising when you consider the records go back almost 350 years. And this is a big, big plot of land. This isn't just like your normal house in the suburbs. That's a big space of land for things to happen on.
Right.
Yeah. So it's really not that out of the realm of possibilities if you think about it.
Okay, so let's talk about the real Perrins. The family lived in the 14 bedroom farmhouse from 1970 to 1980 and initially purchased it in the winter of 1970. So the state of Rhode Island doesn't legally require the seller of a home to inform the buyer of any supernatural or paranormal events that have taken place on the property. So the Perrins were unaware of any hauntings. However, in her book, House of Darkness, House of Light, Andrea Perrin wrote that the man who sold them the house told her father, Roger, to leave the lights on at night. In the movie, Roger states they bought the house at auction and never met the previous owners.
Mm-hmm. So the people who moved into the house were Roger Perrin, who is a truck driver, and his wife Carolyn and their 5 daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cynthia, and April. There is no mention of a family dog dying soon after moving into the home, or even a mention of them having a dog at all.
They didn't have to have the dog die in the damn movie. It doesn't.
No, they really didn't. You gotta add to the drama, though.
Yeah, yeah.
And everyone was enjoying the home until strange noises started coming out of empty rooms and items started going missing. This sounds like what I dealt with in my childhood home that was built in the 80s in the suburbs. Yeah, like this is normal to me, The girls started seeing spirits that would visit them at night, one being a boy named Oliver Richardson, who befriended April. I'm assuming this is supposed to be the boy named Rory that we see in the movie. Another presence is presumed to be the ghost of 57-year-old Johnny Arnold, who took his life in 1911 at his home near Tarkiln. It is said that Johnny would watch the girls as they played. The Perrin family alleged that he took his life in the home, but according to records, this is not true. That's not what happened.
So Roger, Dad, understandably brushed the occurrences off as like a figment of their imagination, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when he started experiencing strange activity, he couldn't really deny it anymore. The mom, Carolyn, started finding piles of dirt in the middle of rooms when no one else was home and noticed the broom seemed to go missing or move from place to place. And she also started noticing bruising all over her body, like we see in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Like we see in the movie, Nancy and Christine shared a room. Cindy and April shared a room, and Andrea, being the oldest, had her own room. The bedroom doors would slam open and closed on their own. And Christine said that there are things that happened in the house that she will never tell anyone. She hasn't even told the other members of her family.
Yikes.
Yeah. So that could be just her trying to be sus, or she went through some really bad shit. It could go either way. The family believed there were spirits in the home that smelled like rotting flesh and would make the beds rise off the floor. Roger would enter the basement to fix the furnace that often failed and feel a cold, stinking presence behind him. They tried to avoid the cellar as much as possible, but that's hard to do when you've got equipment down there that you need.
Vital machinery that's kind of essential for everyday sustainability.
Right. And I want to add that nowhere in the real history did I see that cellar was
boarded up,
blocked off. No, that wasn't a thing that really happened.
No, it's a dramatic way of introducing the murder basement in the movie.
Correct.
Andrea was supposedly being haunted nightly by a malevolent female spirit with a bent neck, like she had been hanged. She believed the spirit wanted to possess her mother and kill her and the children. In the movie, Christine is the one who is initially haunted by this malevolent spirit that pulls her feet and tells her she's going to kill them all. According to Andrea, the spirit resented her mother because she perceived herself to be the mistress of the house and resented the competition. She lusted after Roger and fought Carolyn to be the dominating force in the home. Roger said he'd feel a hand rub against his back sometimes. While he may have been experiencing gentler events, Carolyn felt like they were in danger.
Yeah. Typical male to not have the same experience.
Of course not.
As everyone else. The parents contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren in 1973 around Halloween to come and investigate the farmhouse. While the movie portrays the couple moving in with the parents for an undisclosed amount of time, the real Warrens actually spent very little time in the house. Lorraine Warren made the connection to Bathsheba Sherman. Carolyn told Ed and Lorraine about an experience she had while lying on the couch in the living room. She felt a sudden piercing pain in her calf and the muscle started to spasm. When she looked at her leg, she found blood and a small puncture in her skin. There were no stinging insects around, so Carolyn was left wounded and confused. When Carolyn mentioned this event to Ed and Lorraine, along with the story of Bathsheba, who had allegedly killed an infant with a knitting needle, Lorraine suggested Bathsheba could have taken a knitting needle with her to the afterlife and been responsible for her injury. Lorraine took this idea and ran with it, referring to the so-called demonic presence in the house as Bathsheba.
So, who was the real Bathsheba? Legends claim she was a witch who worshipped Satan and was related to Mary Easty, a woman hanged in the Salem witch trials. According to historical data, Bathsheba had been babysitting her neighbor's son when the boy mysteriously died. Doctors found that the boy's skull was impaled with a small tool. And even though Bathsheba was the last one to be with the child, no charges were ever filed. If this story is true, it's no wonder local women were mad. The legend goes on to say that she stabbed her own child to death with a sewing needle a week after he was born, and then hung herself from a tree in 1849. The real Bathsheba was born Bathsheba Thayer in Rhode Island in 1812 and married Judson Sherman in Thompson, Connecticut in 1844. Bathsheba was a housewife while Judson maintained their farm and ran a produce business. Bathsheba had one child around the age of 37 in March of 1849, a son named Herbert. It is possible they had other children that didn't survive past the age of 7, but there are no records to confirm this.
A woman named Edna, who was the town historian in the 1970s, stated she was unaware of rumors or court records about a baby being murdered, like what they say about Bathsheba. It's believed that the stories made up about Bathsheba Sherman are due to a lack of documentation. There's very little documents explaining who she was, and there is no information that states she practiced witchcraft or even lived in the Arnold house. However, Bathsheba's tombstone in Harrisville says her date of death was May 25th of 1885. Town records list her cause of death as paralysis, and her obituary in the Burrillville Gazette on May 25th states that she had a sudden attack of paralysis, which was probably a stroke. So she obviously didn't hang herself. Her son Herbert married a woman named Anna in 1881, proving that he was alive and well. Andrea Perrin didn't believe it was Bathsheba who tormented her mother, but a woman who lived in the Arnold house and hung herself in the barn in 1797.
I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you, but an exorcism didn't actually take place in the dusty old basement. The Warrens refused to carry out exorcisms because they weren't Catholic priests and therefore didn't have the authority to do so. So much for Ed Warren saying fuck the rules and successfully exorcising a demon when he'd never done it before. The Warrens did make several trips to the house during the decade the Perrons lived there. During one visit, Lorraine conducted a seance in an attempt to contact the spirits that were allegedly possessing the family. During the seance, it is said that Carolyn Perron became possessed and started speaking in tongues, even rising from the ground in her chair. Andrea writes about the seance in her book and claims to have secretly witnessed the event. Andrea stated Carolyn was speaking a language not of this world in a voice that wasn't hers. Her chair levitated, and she was thrown across the room. Ouch!
So let's get into some tales from the owner of the home when the movie came out and some other tales about the property. The owner of the house when the movie was released, a woman named Norma Sutcliffe, was not told that the movie was being released, and it wreaked havoc on their lives. Occult followers found their name and private information. They experienced stalking, harassment, trespassing, because all of these people think that they had a right to invade their lives and privacy and threaten their well-being, which
God, I would have been pissed.
Absolutely, which understandably threw them into, a life of anxiety and stress.
Mm-hmm.
And it very much reminds me of the house from Breaking Bad. So the front of the house is an actual house that people live in. But the people who live in the house know and approved for their house to be used.
Right.
So they knew exactly what they were getting themselves into. This is not that.
They were blindsided.
Right. It was just awful. And because this movie came out and their lives were turned upside down, they started doing their own research into the home and these claims that were made by the parents. The Sutcliffe stated that the movie was complete fiction and that nothing was based on factual reality. And Andrea Perron, the book she wrote, they said that it had no connection to the story in the movie. And it really doesn't. What happens in the movie is really not at all what happens in the books that Andrea Perron wrote. Mm-hmm. And Carolyn claimed there were multiple suicides and murders and everything that took place on this property, but the owner at the time says none of it was true, and a lot of these statements were debunked based on her own research that she did and talking with town historians that kept record of what happened there.
So the book Andrea wrote states that their lives before coming to the Arnold house were already hectic and, filled with drama. Kind of were a little bit of a dysfunctional family, if you will. Other investigators of the hauntings feel that the Perrons weren't preyed upon by demons, but believed they were due to religious and paranormal propaganda, which is evident throughout Andrea Perron's books. Any noise or odd happening must have been paranormal because they don't know what caused it. Ed and Lorraine took the family's fears and ran with it for their own gain. In the final book Andrea released, she even writes about how Lorraine proposed a book deal to her mother, Carolyn.
Yeah. So the Sutcliffes didn't experience any paranormal activity in the home, but understandably decided to leave because of the attention the property received after the movie. And then paranormal investigators Corey and Jennifer Heinzen bought the home in 2019. They reported unexplained activity, including footsteps, knocks, and doors opening on their own. They even set up cameras to record the activity at all hours of the day and night. I did not go into a deep dive into what this activity was that they recorded. I just think it's a little interesting that the Sutcliffes didn't experience anything, but then paranormal investigators buy the home and suddenly there's a whole bunch of shit going down. Yeah. the current owner, Jacqueline Nunez, bought the property in 2022. She, of course, has also experienced tons of paranormal activity and has embraced the haunted legacy of the home. She offers tours, investigations, glamping, and other experiences at the home and on the property. Needless to say, it's been a lucrative opportunity for her. So what do you think, Amber? Is it really haunted? Or is this another Amityville?
I'm leaning towards Amityville.
Yeah.
Because, it's crazy. Back in the day, like, people used to use paranormal activity as like a means for financial gain, and people today sell feet pics.
Yeah. I mean, look, at least pictures of your feet, the only people who are buying those are the people who want them, right?
That's going to benefit from it.
Correct. So
That is
impacts
feeding
a lot
off of the fears of other people and exploiting that and draining their bank accounts. So,
look, it's an old ass house on a big piece of land that's been around for hundreds of years. Obviously, people have died there. There's been tragedies that have happened there. It's very easy to sit here and say it's haunted. Who knows? Maybe it is. Maybe there were little things here and there that were happening. Do I believe that it was haunted to this extent?
The extent? No.
No. Do I believe that some woman named Bathsheba cursed it after hanging herself? No.
Possibly. Doesn't mean it actually did anything.
Right. And there's proof to show that she actually lived to be quite an old lady, and none of the other things that were said about her were true. So, it makes for a fun story and a good film franchise.
I don't know that I'll watch the second and third ones.
I won't, and I won't read her books. Yeah. It's fun to talk about. I don't necessarily think it's true.
No.
Yeah. I'd be curious to know what everybody else thinks about it.
Yes. But you know what I'm excited about? Next week for the fourth and final installment of this year's Wicked Wednesday, which I don't know. It might be the freakiest movie of the bunch that we've talked about. So we've done 2 paranormal and 1 slasher. This is not paranormal.
No.
Not really a slasher.
No. It's
psychological thriller?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's scary and there is murder. It's definitely a psychological thriller, which I think is what makes it the scariest one out of all of them.
The whole psychological aspect of it.
Because this one is definitely one that you could see actually happening more than any of the rest of them.
Yep. Can't wait to dive into that one.
Oh, yeah. So come back next week for that. And, as always, if you like what you hear, subscribe, follow us on socials, and tell your friends, because we can't do this without y'all support. And that's, what makes us want to continue and find all of these creepy ass stories to tell you guys about. So let us know what you think. And the funny ones. So let us know what you think. Is the Conjuring house actually haunted? Are there other movies with creepy backgrounds that you would like us to explore next year in October? Reach out. Let us know what you think. And until then, stay safe.
And make good choices. Bye.
Bye.